is important to test and try upfront. And I think automation is an underestimated domain, but also to test the basics, but give it out to customers and ask them how it's going. And if you can measure it.
Hi everyone, welcome to today's episode of Retention Zone, the video podcast focused on streaming monetization. I have the pleasure to have with me from Switzerland, Roger Pitton, with a long experience, I think, in media and streaming especially. Hi Roger.
Hi Carlo, thank you very much for having me on this podcast.
So tell me about how you ended up doing what you do today in the world of streaming and media.
Sure. So as I know, I'm about 30 years in the IT domain. So from mainframe to whatever we have nowadays.
Oh, wow.
10 years in an airline. And then by coincidence, I ended up in Swisscom. And in Swisscom, again, by coincidence, I found my way into a really exciting project, trying to find out if TV would be a business for Swisscom. And so we had kicked this off with a proof of concept on 2 megabits DSL lines. It was not too bad, let's put it that way. Not comparable, but nevertheless. And then from there, I was helping launching Swisscom TV, which today has 1.5 million subscribers. I worked for Swisscom, I worked for Microsoft technology supplier. I did other exciting projects like running a couple of TV services projects on the Xbox itself. So in Germany, Austria, Portugal. I run projects in Russia, in the UK. And then with the migration or the transfer of the media room, Microsoft Media Room assets to Ericsson, I continue working there, run projects in Asia, Russia, Netherlands, proof of concepts on cloud TV, also very exciting stuff to be done. As a next step, I went to Quickline, a small cable operator in Switzerland, launched the first Android TV box in Switzerland itself, so another interesting journey. I worked for UPC in Switzerland, Liberty Global subsidiary, back to MediaKind on the vendor side. And the last project since middle of 22 as a freelancer is launching Pure TV from Tele Columbus in Germany, which went to market in October last year as my last successful launch. And as you can see, one of the unique experiences, I've worked for vendors as well as operators and customers. So I know both sides of the table, and I know both sides what their objectives are and their needs are. Which is very interesting.
I agree. I spent all my career on the vendor side, so I always a bit envious to be on the other side and be the bad guy, say, no, this doesn't work. I'm joking. So one thing that, very often we talk about strategies for, launching new services, streaming media strategies. The market is consolidating. Companies are bundling the offering. So it's very high level. On the other hand, you have the consumer, so you try to learn as much as you can about them because you need to sell your services, or at least have them spend time with your services if you are funded. But there is a human aspect of the people that make it happen that I think it's always, I don't want to say underestimated because it's clear that it's important. Maybe there is nobody talking about it more. Mm-hmm. And I think especially this relationship vendor and client is crucial to the final success. I can imagine, you said many times the word launch. I launched, so you had situation in terms of customer base where you started from zero, which is a scary place to start, but you had others where maybe you had already. So how do you think important delivering this kind of services in a way that not only can make customer come, but also stay and avoid churn going forward? There is a delivery aspect of it, I guess. Sorry for the long theory.
No. And I think it's an interesting aspect. It also shows a little bit the transition from the industry where when I started, this was on-prem servers, hundreds of them, and you were selling licenses every year up front. You sold a high number of licenses. They're going to be deployed perfectly fine. However, today with a SaaS, even as a vendor, when you launch, you start with 0 customers. almost some form of minimum revenue you've got, and that's it. And then you have to build your trust and build the service towards your from a rent to the customer, the operator, but also to the end consumer. So you really have to convince and get every single one of them up and running. And that's, of course, you have to have a compelling price, you have a good product, the right content they want to have, but then you have to really help them and grow and make sure the service works. It's you find your stuff and it acts as you would expect. And if there is a problem, you're there to help. That's very important. The customer care is one of the few things where it makes a huge difference how the service is perceived. My experience is if once in a while something doesn't work, that's not the end of the world. But if you call and they cannot help you, that's not good. If it happens every day, no good either. So that's where you have to listen very, very carefully and understand what happens on your customer side. I say there's many reasons, retention and churn. In all the previous podcasts, there's lots about the business models, how to bundle them. We are super bundling now everything going forward, which I think makes sense. However, if the customers they're not finding their content, it doesn't work properly, they will not be happy, and they will tell their friend that's a bad service. Hence, they will churn and go away, and then you can have the best bundles you like. It's not going to work. So the focus on the end consumer is quite often rather, how should I say, it's not the main focus. Sometimes say, hey, get this stuff launched, but you have to be very close to the end consumer.
And let's talk about with customer service, because that's something I talk often on this podcast. But personally, if I can find online, and now we know that there's a lot of AI helping these FAQs or customer service online work. If I can find the solution, now there are chatbots. So to be honest, I'm happy. If I need to call someone, I normally know that if I call, it's a nightmare, right? So on one hand, you would say, oh, it's better to have a human, but very often the human takes 15 minutes and at the end. So what do you think is, as of today, the best solution to provide what you said? I mean, clearly having something that works, but if, once in a while there is an issue or there is issue that is related maybe to my experience, what is the best way to serve the super served customers of today?
So if TV is a bit of a challenge because it's two medias, right? So you can have the chats on your phone, but then you're limited to your little phone, and okay, you can have it. Your PC is far away normally, so okay, you can have a laptop. Think about the customer base quite often, and it's a bit not so technology advanced. Not saying they're novice or something, but even maybe not. So helping them on the phone is one of the crucial elements. It's a person I talk to. And if you ever have the chance to go to a customer care agent and sit there for an hour or two, they're amazing. Because also they know every single TV set out there in the market and how the remote control looks like. Because sometimes they are on a different input, no video there. So stuff like that. So that's where they are really amazing to help. But of course, ideally, it never goes to the point. Ideally, some smart system monitoring, and you find issues or areas which could get into trouble and fix them up front. So that's something you can do. But I think the human element is quite a very important one because it's so diverse. It could be, I said, it's your TV set, it's your Wi-Fi, it's your Ethernet, whatever, or remote control has no batteries, and then you need to be able to help them. So maybe in 5-10 years, AI can be much better, but I think people need to talk with. But the chatting, I think, will not work yet.
And in terms of the delivery aspect, so what your experience, where do you think that part of building and launching makes a difference in terms of retaining, avoiding churn, etc.? Because I think there is a lot of subtle, like the credit card or the message you receive. So it's a very sophisticated relationship from this, I would say, the app. Forget the human for a moment. So you need to build a system that has a lot of sophistication in the way it relates to consumer, not to if you want, what you said before, not to have a bad opinion, then tell even other friends, oh,
Yeah.
this is not good.
Of course not. I think there's two aspects to it. One is if you start from greenfield, basically you have the super onboarding experience. You purchase it, you can download the app, a few clicks, and off you go. Or if you have ship a box, then that's fine. So I just purchased a new iPad. That experience from transferring from a Model 5 to the iPad Air is amazing. You press a couple buttons, put it next to each other, and something will happen. Okay, it's a controlled environment, a little easier, but nevertheless, something like that needs to be there as well, so that it's seamless. It will do the job. I think it doesn't need to have all the bells and whistles yet. It can improve over time, and I think that is very important. And of course, if you transition from an existing service to a new one, you have to make it as seamless as possible. So ideally, don't install a new app and do this. And if you cannot connect any new cables because each time you have to do something on your TV set, it's a good chance that you do the wrong one or whatever. So that is something which is very important to focus on and try it before you go. So that's my very, very deep but sorry, I really believe in this, that you try, look what happens, go back, continue, improve, try, and it's this agile approach which is there, but it needs to be done. It needs to be lived on. And ask your customers, look at your data, and then make the right opinion out of it, of course.
Yeah, because one thing. Sorry, Roger, go.
One more thing is also, it's not stopping anymore. So we don't have like this build and run phase. This is blending. Of course, I build something to get running, but then it continues. I get new apps I integrate. I get some, I don't know, new device. There is new device types which I can do certain things. So this is a never-ending customer journey and adding new features over time as well. And I also believe adding new stuff over time is a recognition that this operator is doing something. This operator is looking how things to get it done better in a careful way. You can put it upside down, and that's something which is challenging. But go for it, and you have test customers you can use, active or or passive, by just trying a certain segment, or you have a group of 1,000 users which try stuff out first. And listen.
Yeah, because one point where I was going is possibly one of the unsexiest word in the industry is QA and test, because quality assurance and test is normally, sorry, I say it a bit in a funny way, but nobody wants to do it and nobody wants to pay for it. But
that's correct.
To be honest, especially when you're in front a big number of customers who are in very different situations, scenarios, network, and the devices, as you said, if you're in an enclosed environment with Apple devices, is one thing, still not trivial. But if you're in an open environment, it's even more complex. QA and test is, at the end, what can make a difference between success and failure. I guess.
No, that's completely correct. So my ideal scenario would be that if I have a new version, automated testing to see if it works, test the new stuff, and then give it to a small group of users, 20, 50. Leave it a week, give it to 500, look at it, continue, give it to 5,000, and then keep on going, and then you look how it is. Because TV is if TV fails while the Swiss play the Italian in the Euro, and then in the penalty shootout it fails, no, you're going to make the news, but not for the reason which team has won, and that's something which is important to test and try up front. And I think automation is an underestimated domain, but also to test the basics, but give it out to customers and ask them how it's going. And if you can measure it. Quality of service, you can do NPS service as well. There's lots of talk, but you need to consolidate that data and look at it, have a baseline. So the previous one was like this, boot up time, channel change time, error rates, whatever. And then you look if it's going to be any better going forward, any better going forward. And then you go down, and then sometimes new stuff comes up, and then you have to address it once in a while. But also, don't be afraid of every single item which could happen. There's so many things which can happen out there. I've seen my best episode is at the very, very beginning, just a like episodes. There was a guy putting his box into the fridge so it survived the 2-hour football game after. Okay, that was the proof of concept prototype box, but the guy was able to help himself. But nevertheless, I mean, this should not be the possibility.
No, not really.
Yeah.
No, the one thing that you remind me is very often, as much as you put a strong process, I always said, and I've always operated in live sport, which is a bit different. I mean, a bit different, has some specificity. Very often I was the guy testing myself with 10,000 devices the moment we launched. I saw often a bit of underestimation from the techies of, okay, we have done this perfect thing, which is not. We put it live, we give it in the hands of people, and it will behave like we know. And I was very often nobody liked me because I was the one sending the email at whatever time when I discovered the small bug, the small things. Because very often when you put content and technology together, it's not the same. And even if you do the best test possible, and I'm sure people at Amazon or Netflix, or they can do it like extremely well. They're amazing teams. But in live streaming sport, they also fail. So you always have surprise. So I don't know if there is a name, but and this is what you said with the user, but really keeping testing and discovering stuff, because maybe you put sensor and you get error from the devices. So I think QA and testing to keep customers happy, it's continuing after any launch, after any new feature. But again, it's a bit a naive explanation. I'm sorry.
No, I think it's good. So as I capturing the data, looking at it, making sense out of it. I know operators have like robots doing the same thing day and night, even in production, because you could see over time, because there's so many things which could go wrong. So your neighbor can get a new Wi-Fi box and influences yours, and then suddenly your QoS goes down, and that's something which you need to continuously watch, monitor, and see. Ideally, at some point, you have some smart systems looking at patterns, how many people have this pattern, and try to find out something, what to do about it. I know one system we had, it was looking, a customer is calling, was looking for patterns, and I gave 3-4 ideas to the customer occasion. Hey, based on patterns I'm aware of, this guy could have A, B, or C. Figure it out, and maybe that's a helpful thing and something. Ideally, you could do that before even a customer calls. That's of course the best you can have. And I think, for me, one of the key metrics besides our performance is how long are the people using the box a day. Even if they use Netflix and Amazon or whatever, if it's not in Switzerland, it's about 3 hours. If they use it 3 hours a day all year round, you're safe. If that number goes down to only 1 hour a day, then did he switch to his smartphone apps or a smart TV apps or whatever? And then you're in trouble, because at some point he's going to cancel, and you're down to the big pipe, which you as an ISP may be still okay to be, but if you want to be visible, and that's it, because TV is the one few things which is visible from an operator with its name on it, besides a remote control. Internet is virtual. It has to work. You see a box up there, but that is usually hidden. So that's why TV is very sensitive about the consumer experience, about making it easy and straightforward.
One thing that you mentioned at the beginning, SaaS platform. So cloud SaaS platform, I think in theory should have brought a level of standardization, because everybody's using a product. So on one side, if you're building a platform, a SaaS platform, you learn from old customers, right? And in theory, you put everything you learn in the platform back. Do you think cloud and SaaS have improved in general, and especially specialized? Like you have someone specialized in subscription and retention. You have someone specialized OVP in video and streaming, etc. So the fact that more and more services are built aggregating this SaaS platform, do you think that's an advantage?
I think so. Maybe for a slightly different twist, because in the past also, at the beginning when I started, we had one backend release a year, which was shipped. And then,
Sorry.
but the thing, no, you're not. And then what happens? The operator took it, tested it, and we had one, it took 2 years to get it out to the field, right, from there. And so you're completely dependent on the next one in the delivery chain, so on the test plans, on production and all that stuff. And the software was built in a way it has to go like this. Today in the cloud, first, usually the software is built a little different, that you don't have to do that. You can do it more frequently. And more frequently means less change built in, and the less changes, the less it can break. Because in the past, I mean, none of those once a year releases worked nicely at the beginning. It always had a couple of iterations to fix it. And that was definitely helping. And so you have less entities involved, which can make a mistake and delay the process. So for me, yes, it definitely has brought an advantage. And yeah, there is also once in a while, there is an issue with the cloud provider, the connectivity, and there's some flaws. I mean, but I think it was less than before. I think the cloud definitely helps.
And especially I have to say, just to maybe wrap up, especially as not every service is global, and maybe telcos are less global, but in general, streaming services more and more are global, sometimes even in sport, especially if you're global and you have to start to manage multiple currencies specific. So thinking that someone builds things by themselves, it's scary by definition. So you really try to aggregate the best solution you have available, especially understanding which one can work globally and which one, very often global is not global, is multi-local, which one understands multi-localization properly. And again, maybe it's partial for telcos, it's true for all global services, or in my case, I've seen sport properties launching global services. So I think to me, it's a fascinating environment still to date, even if now it's mature, I mean, in theory, right?
I think the building up the basics today is not a problem. So you get the basics. It does play video. You have a decent channel change. The picture quality is fine. So it's all good. So when it becomes to specifics, local integration, sometimes parental control can be a challenge. Implementing the content rights. In the last project, we had stuff which you could buffer in the data center. Some of them goes to other apps. So you press the button, it goes into an app and plays the content from there. So those kind of things are getting better and better. And but yeah, that's the specialities you have to deal with in every single customer account. And so not always to the best for the consumer, because the consumer does not understand why this program goes to an app and this one does not.
Yes.
Another one, why can't I fast forward here? And the previous program I could, so I could skip the ads, but the content rights didn't allow it. And all those kind of things, still not so much the consumer in mind in some cases. Yes, I do live in Switzerland in replay, time shift heaven, so we can do some interesting regulation here. But in other countries, I think there is still work to be done to embrace that from a customer point of view, because my wish going forward, we are super bundling now, so the latest trend, which is really good and makes sense. I even do one myself. However, I still have to go one by one to find that stuff. So come on, I want to look for something, and then I want to watch this. I don't care where it is, and show it to me. So this is the next step. I do hope the customers will say, "I'll give you money for all of it." But it doesn't make it easy for me that I don't need half an hour in my 3-hour window a day to figure out what I want to do with the 3 hours. That's not good use of time.
That's in theory the holy grail, to be honest. We know about it. People have created universal search. In the end, we are still spending hours to find our content.
That's correct. There is improvements point by point. I think Android TV, Google TV, they goes in a similar direction. But who has thought about super bundling 5 years ago? Netflix would probably have said never ever. They never ever do advertising. They never ever do this. things will change, and I hope towards the focus of the customer and a good product which works, and then everybody's happy and they keep paying.
Fantastic ending.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing this. We went a
My
bit
pleasure.
shaky, but sometimes my ex-CTO background from 20 years comes back, and if I find people on the same wavelength, I can't resist. Va bene. Thank you, Roger. Have a nice week.
Carlo,
Ciao.
thank you very much. It was great to be in the show. Thank you.
Ciao.
Thank you. Ciao.